That was the Elder.
To your queen, mortal. Fire is sanctity. Fire is sanctity.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
Are you ready, my champion?
Disintegration, cleansing, annihilation, incineration. The fires Disintegration, cleansing, annihilation. Incineration. Annihilation vulnerable.
Until the others arrive to challenge me for this realm.
Did you really think this would work?
Sirus, please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
Destroying you is as easy as flicking a pest.
No!
Sana!
Kirak!
How boring and small. You want the Atlas? Take it. It's yours. But Oriath, I will burn to the ground. Perhaps the suffering of my fellow citizens will finally stir something.
Fury of the cosmos. Creation itself.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. Die.
Your lives are meaningless. You are nothing. Glorious flames. Be utterly
The others
annihilated.
found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish. Die.
This city is nothing. Creation itself. Rain of stars. Glorious flames. Embrace nothingness.
Life really interesting enough to warrant all this pain.
Watch beauty crumble. Fury of the cosmos. Creation itself. Glorious flames. Pointless. Fury of the cosmos. Be utterly annihilated. Pointless. Obliteration. Fury of the cosmos. Why resist? Creation itself. Obliteration. Fury of the cosmos. Why resist? Be utterly annihilated. Rain of stars.
I am.
Everlasting fire.
You will long for
Non-existence.
at least I felt something.
crucible that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Run along. Turn back, trespasser. Cease this madness. You tamper with things you do not understand.
The light of divinity!
Not go unpunished. This is your final warning. You force my hand again, little mouse. So, you've chosen the side of chaos. This is mine, and you shall obey my order. Gaze into the abyss.
Buy me some time. He's trying to recover. Hurry! Let's find a way back.
Behold the fate of your unmaid.
Father, it's me. Let me help you.
The horror must be stopped. Obstacles destroyed.
To me, exile, quickly!
Gaze into the abyss.
Imperfect.
He's trying to recover. Hurry! Let's find a way back.
These memories are mine. I cannot lose them.
They lied to you, Father. I'm your true memory.
To save the future, the past must be sacrificed.
We need to close this.
of him!
The prize piece comes to join.
My collection.
A cascade of pain.
Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my collection.
I will have what I want. This will not be an escape. Sky, sky. A cascade of pain. Stand still. Why?
Resistance will be punished. Time contorts. Scary, scary.
My irritation is growing. Stand still. This will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. A cascade of pain. Do what I say. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends. Punishment inescapable.
Arrogant toy. Take this. Death will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. My collection is a cascade of pain. Stand still.
I require aid. The living toy must enjoy our contests.
Your skin will make a fine quiver, slaver!
push the lumberers back beneath the sands. Back to dust. Chill! I will avenge you! Only the sun can bring about the dawn. Winds
Japan as unwanted! Sinners, all of you!
Make me burn with your blood. Stay, dog. Rejoice. The queen has deemed you worthy of sacrifice. For the queen.
Your rebellion ends here.
Traitor!
Too long since my parents tasted slave blood. Stay, dog.
Only the sun can bring about the dawn. Back to the dust. We will fight to see it. Chill! I will avenge you. Hyenas do not howl. A good omen. Winds take
Impure and sinners will burn with it! Repent!
Make a fine quiver, slaver. Your sacrifice will be forever. Stay, dog.
Your rebellion ends here.
a good omen. Back to dust. Chill! Time has come, Mayakara. To push the lumberers take you.
Repent! And sinners will burn with it! Sinners! All of you!
Too long since my arrows tasted slave blood. For Tukohama!
Howdy Exiles, it's me, Vashtalos, and I am here to talk to you today about my level 100 Artillery Ballista Hierophant. This is going to be a guide. I will do my best to make it comprehensive and as informational as possible. And other than that, for the foreword, I would like you to experiment. Just have fun. Don't feel like you have to do everything that I did one for one. And let's get to talking, shall we? So what you're looking at right now is a leveling tree. This is for Acts 1 through 3. You will make your way towards Retribution, and then you will make your way towards Holy Dominion, Sanctity, Purity of Flesh, and Elemental Overload. After that, I would recommend Stormweaver. Grab your hits have a 25% chance to treat elemental resistances as inverted, and then get this intelligence points right here in preparation for your first ascendancy, so that whenever you do get Pursuit of Faith, you can just put in Ancestral Bond and get that nice +1 totem. Here's what it'll look like after that first ascendancy swap. I do recommend that before you get Artillery Ballista, you get this Dexterity node, as you'll probably need it in order to first start using the skill. You should also pick up Spiritual Command whenever you feel like it. You don't have to get this early, as it's going to be a while before you get a bow that can actually make full use of this. But it is very powerful. It is a very powerful modifier, especially late game when you can get the appropriate modifier. We'll talk about that later. From there, we've got a leveling tree that excludes the in-game jewels, such as Rain of Splinters, Watcher's Eye, Unnatural Instinct, and then your Timeless Jewel. And we've also allocated some passive points that would serve as an example of where you could go or what points you should be putting in when you don't have something such as a Hiri's Ire that I have in the item section as well. Because Hiri's Ire gives you a lot of spell suppression, and in that chance it saves you about 4 skill points, and you can use those elsewhere. But before then, you would obviously want to have capped spell suppression chance. And this is what the in-game tree is going to look like. It's got all the tattoos that you would care about. I did not include a journey tattoo of the Makanui, because that's a serious gamble. We really only want Ghost Dance or Divine Shield when it comes to the Journey tattoo of the Makanui. You could put it here at Internal Youth, you can put it here on Rune Binder, you can put it here on Iron Grip, you can put it here on Iron Will. There's a ton of keystones that you have immediately available to you for only 1 skill point, and you could just take one out and go and, you know, gamble your heart away if you so choose. But it is a very, very late game thing to decide to do. And it is a very rich man thing to do, right? It's like you've got a ton of Divine Orbs. I think they're a Divine Orb a pop or something. I spent like 12 Divine Orbs, and I couldn't get anything really close to as useful as Divine Shield or Ghost Dance. But if you want to do that, I'd recommend you do that. Those are pretty powerful. That about does it for the skill section. Since this is a comprehensive guide, I guess I will talk about some of the changes that I made since my last video in terms of passive skill changes. You do want a 3 passive small cluster jewel with reservation efficiency, and you do want it to be sublime form so that you get the 10% additional all elemental resistances. You are very hungry for elemental resistances on this build due to some other item choices. Graceful Assault is actually crazy. It's an insane amount of attack speed, gives you movement speed, it gives you Onslaught if you don't have your medium cluster jewel yet with Sleepless Sentries, and it also gives you a very respectable amount of effective hit pool via all that evasion and armor increase. We did move back towards 12% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, and that was a multi-part decision, mainly due to it was within our Timeless Jewel circle. We wanted to change around some of our gem links, which I will talk about in a second. And while the other option is good, it's just, you know, not nearly as powerful as flat mana on top of percentage increase and some extra dexterity via the radius. So yeah, I think that does it for changes. Instead of using something like a Dissolution of the Flesh or a Quickening Covenant, I think is what it's called. Instead of using that, we're just using a rare jewel with Corrupted Blood, cannot be inflicted on you. Everything else does not matter. If you want, here's a good example. It's got life, it's got attack and cast speed, which we obviously want because that's like the throughput of our entire build is how fast can we attack and how many times can we attack per second. Excuse me. And then life is just nice. Watcher's Eye. It's very important that you get yourself one with phasing, in my opinion, if you want to play like you've seen me behave on screen. I do not have a quartz flask on my belt, and I don't plan on including one, other than Forbidden Taste, mainly. But the reason for that is that while we do get some phasing from our Unnatural Instinct picking up bow and attack speed and phasing, or bow attack speed and phasing down here, it's not really like as handsome of an uptime as I would have liked. And ultimately, it's just a massive quality of life that I didn't feel like giving up, and then grab yourself some attack speed via a precision modifier if you can. There are plenty of other R's that you could swap in instead and do it completely differently, but this is what I chose to do, and I thought it felt fun to play. Nothing else has changed up here. You still grab yourself a Honored Tattoo of the Hunter so that you get +1 to all of Dexterity skill gems. You are limited to one of these, so I do recommend that you get it up here by Elemental Overload. Late game, like I said, grab Spiritual Command. For your tattoos, I recommend use a lot of your strength nodes for chaos resistance. Use one dexterity node for 5% chance to blind enemies on hit with attacks. Use a majority of your dexterity nodes for chaos resistance as well. And then use 4 dexterity nodes for chance to suppress spell damage. And this is all after you get your Hiri's Ire. It's after you get your Rain of Splinters, and it's after you get your Unnatural Instinct. So there are some stepping stones that you will need in order to reach this point, but each one feels really good in my opinion, and lets you readjust your skill points in a new way, which I found very fun. I did not grab myself the best possible Timeless Jewel. I had one with some resistances on it. I think it was Fury Bolts, and then there was one other that I had, right? Oh yeah, Savagery and Fury Bolts had enough cold resistance on it for me, and I moved forward. I chose to forget about the Timeless Jewel from then on, as I just personally hate looking for them. We were thinking about going Ancestral Preservation instead of Ironwood, but after looking at Ironwood, it gives us a lot of effective hit pool. It gives us a lot of effective hit pool, and it also makes our totems a lot happier too, so I felt like that was necessary. If you don't want to go this Totem Mastery and you feel like you're beefy enough and you want your totems to be beefier, then go Ancestral Preservation on top of Ironwood, and you'd probably feel really, really strong. Or at least your totems would. I think that about does it in terms of changes. We got those extra points by taking away Ballistics and this life and stun avoidance. We do lose a little bit of life, but it's nothing to write home about in place of Graceful Assault or extra mana reservation efficiency, or some other mastery that isn't Ancestral Preservation or a Totem Mastery, or you could go up here for a Reservation Mastery. I think that does it for masteries, though. There's not really too much of interest. You could, go for something from Armor and Evasion Mastery, or you could go for something from Evasion Mastery, but I don't really think they're worthwhile. You could spend that point better elsewhere. Let's talk about some of the skills real quick. So, it's going to be Artillery Ballista. You know that. But you will want Inspiration, Awakened Added Cold Damage, Concentrated Effect, Faster Attacks, and Awakened Elemental Damage with Attacks. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is what's going to display... get out of here, fly. It's not going to display what is the prettiest number over here on the description box, because that's not how this build works. This build operates off of inverting the resistances of the target it hits. So you want to do that as often and as fast as possible. This build is a variation of the build of the week from Cheap Bunny's build guide, where It's basically almost the same thing in a lot of ways, but as a Hierophant. So you want attack speed, and then you want more attack speed, and you want some more attack speed. And after that, you want some elemental damage, maybe a little bit of crit, and engage with elemental overload. And you want frenzy. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'll go back. Yeah. So when it comes to the other gem links, faster attacks does not display as nice as it should, but it is 100% necessary. You should always have this in your 6th link, no matter what you choose. If there's anything that could be changed around, in my opinion, it's concentrated effect or added cold damage. As you know, added lightning damage I think would be maybe better than added cold damage. I'm not sure on that 100%. But concentrated effect also feels weird at times, to where it's like, is it better to have more AoE and have more overlap, or is it better to have less AoE, and is that overlap then happening more that way? Concentrated effect did display as the greatest overall DPS gain, so that's what I'm moving forward with in the guide recommendation. But really, if you're going to experiment with anything, just let it be concentrated effect, and then everything else is pretty rock solid, as well as you would start to struggle with socket coloring on your bow if you play around with socket colors too much. As before, we were trying to do some weird crit stuff, and that wasn't really working out. But moving on now, in our chest, you will use 5 Rs and an Enlightened support gem. I know, it's really expensive. I'm sorry, you don't need to do this off the bat, but you can. You can buy yourself a level 3 Enlighten, and it would potentially be okay. I haven't tested that myself, but I've definitely done something like that before, and it's worked out a-okay. Precision, Vol Haste, War Banner, or Defiance Banner, if you feel like your accuracy is fine enough and you want a little bit more effective hit points. But War Banner is nice, as you can also place it for Adrenaline that I've spoken of in a earlier video. Vol Grace, it's an extra defensive layer, and the alternate quality Grace options aren't really that interesting. You can go for a Divergent Determination though. That is a little expensive, but you know, more armor the merrier, and otherwise you're just using a regular Determination. That does it for the chest setup. Frenzy, I recommend that you put this in your boots for Life Tap, Culling Strike, and Mana Forged Arrows. Mana Forged Arrows is so that it can automate itself. Life Tap, ha! Did I get it? No, I missed. Darn it. Anyways, Culling Strike is for bossing. Feels really good to just get that encounter over about 10% health sooner. Life Tap is an additional buff, and you don't want to level this up. Just let it be level 1. It's not like you're going to be getting damage via Life Tap on any other link that you have set up in this build. And it's a powerful buff. It makes your flasks, or your life flasks, stronger, so what's not to like there in terms of a free buff. And it also makes Mana Forged arrows automate 100% of the time. So every time you click, since this makes Frenzy cost 0 mana, that means we are automatically engaging with the threshold of Mana Forged arrows every time we spend mana on any bow skill. So, very nice. And Vol Molten Shell, cast when damage taken. You can max them out as long as you've got the appropriate amount of health. Now, I will give you a little bit of a note on this. If you don't have 4,000 health, don't have a maximum level cast when damage taken, and don't have a maximum level Vol Molten Shell. It doesn't have to be Vol Molten Shell either if you don't want the extra button. But you want cast when damage taken to be a large amount of your health, but you don't want it to be so close to your actual maximum amount of health that it's not going to proc before you die. So try to toe the line when it comes to this specific link setup. Flame Dash. You want Arcane Surge, believe it or not. Yeah. Why? Because of Wilma's Requital. We benefit from attack speed, and Arcane Surge gives it to us. I'd recommend that you get yourself a Divergent Arcane Surge so that you don't have to keep this up as often, or at least if you do choose to maintain it as a buff at all, this will help you keep it up more often. And don't level it above level 4, as that will be the maximum amount of mana you're going to be able to have your Flame Dash cost with just a single link setup, and a ring modifier that I'll talk about when we get to the items section. Blink Arrow. You don't have to use Frenzy or Feeding Frenzy here, but I thought it was a fun additional buff that isn't often used for Ballista builds. And it's additional 10% attack speed whenever our Blink Arrow clone starts attacking something, which is pretty frequent, as he will have roughly 10 attacks per second. He doesn't need any accuracy. He's just attacking so often that it's near guarantee that you're going to have this up as soon as you have a minion nearby the clone that you just summoned. But I do not think that this is something you should try to maintain. This is just like icing on the cake kind of a buff. If you don't want to use Feeding Frenzy, I'd recommend swap in Clarity, like a low-level Clarity, so that you just have more mana regeneration in case you step on like a dot or something. And you can get yourself a Phantasmal Blink Arrow too, though there is an awkward interaction between how much attack speed we have and an additional charge of Blink Arrow, whereas you'll like attack and then you'll automatically attack again because you're just so fast and your finger wasn't getting off the key as quickly as your next attack was primed. So don't feel like you have to do it. Sniper's Mark. Regular Sniper's Mark, regular mark on hit. Just a 2-link. That does it for the skills section. And then let's talk about items. Here is an example bow. This took me a while to craft. I would like to say I was rather unlucky. I bought myself a suboptimal fractured bow. So this is not an item level 85 bow. If you really wanted to be optimal, get yourself an item level 85 with the tier 1 fractured attack speed like I have. And then spam essences on it until you get triple flat elemental prefixes. So you want a very high amount of fire damage, you want a very high amount of cold damage, and you want a very high lightning damage modifier roll. After that, what you're praying for is an open suffix. With an open suffix, you will go to your benchcraft, and you'll take your bow, and you'll go down here, and you will meta modcraft. Once we find it, prefixes cannot be changed for 2 divine orbs. From there, you'll go over here and hopefully go to your currency tab and grab a Vald Chaos Orb, and you're going to slam it. And because prefixes cannot be changed, and since your attack speed, tier 1 modifier, fracture cannot be changed either, you will cross your fingers for either increased attack speed while a rare or unique enemy is nearby, or minions have increased attack speed, minions have increased cast speed, one or the other, and then you'll go to the bench afterwards and craft on the opposite. Because you want as much attack speed as possible, and you want that to be on a thicket bow. So that's a good example bow. Doesn't have the best prefixes, as they could certainly be higher tier, but the better you get them, the more monstrous your build is going to be. I chose to move forward with a rear guard. It said that this was the most effective hit pool that I could gain from a quiver, at least a unique one. And I thought that block was a defensive layer that I had not really been utilizing in this build, and it wasn't one that I was able to acquire anywhere else besides rear guard, thus arguing its necessity. I chose to double corrupt it with a bow attacks fire an additional arrow for extra effectiveness of added damage in case that projectile does hit a larger target, and some added cold damage. You could go for lightning, fire, whatever else, but I think if you're struggling with spell suppression, you can even get that as a corrupted implicit on unique quivers, or any quiver, but unique quivers are obviously what you should be double corrupting in my opinion. Wilma's Requital. This is absolutely necessary, and the reason being is that it lets us benefit via attack speed through our cast speed. Through that line it says increases and reductions to cast speed apply to attack speed. Super powerful. It also saves us a skill point via giving us Ancestral Bond. We are very hungry for skill points, so it is certainly appreciated. Gives us accuracy, gives us increased elemental damage with attack skills. Unfortunately, it does not give us any armor or evasion, but hey, otherwise it is a near perfect unique helmet. Can't say we have anything to complain about really by choosing this. On top of, you do want that enchant to be an Artillery Ballista fires 2 additional arrows. Hiri's Ire. This is expensive, like I've said before. If you don't want to use a Hiri's Ire, or if you can't afford one, you know, they're like 5 Divine Orbs or something like that, use a Duresso's Defiance. Or use just a regular rare chest. Until I got my Hiri's Ire, I used just that. I had a rare chest piece with evasion on it and resistances, no spell suppression. And then I moved up towards a Duresso's Defiance because of the onslaught effect. It felt really fun, and I was zooming through maps. And then once I could afford a Hiri's Ire, I got one as soon as I could. From there, I saved skill points. Abhorrent Interrogation. I think with some of my first few Chaos, I bought myself a pair of these. This is a new pair that I had bought with a corrupted implicit of maximum frenzy charges. Very powerful. Get yourself a pair if you can, with as much attack speed and cast speed as possible. It has energy shield on it, which we can't really benefit too heavily from unless you have Divine Shield or Ghost Dance. And it does have evasion rating, which is nice. For the boots, you got to get your resistances from somewhere. We're choosing to put a lot of those on our boots. For that, it will be Chaos Resistance and Lightning Resistance. Get as high of modifiers as you can. Life, obviously, you want as high enough of a modifier as you can. And then for Spell Suppression, you only need 10%. The rest you can solve with tattoos. Technically, you just need some percent. The rest you can solve with tattoos. You don't have to be Chaos capped. But if you do want to be Chaos capped, then I would recommend that you try and get yourself a pair near identical to these. The implicits are pretty locked in, as there's not much else that is useful. If you wanted to get rid of the Chaos Resistance implicit, then you could go for Sapped Ground, or you could go for like maximum resistances or something like that. Oh, you could also go for like chill immunity boots. That would be nice. That would be pretty pog. Warped Timepiece. This is it. This is the end game amulet. It ain't moving. You really don't care about anything else. There's nothing else that is going to be as powerful as 60% increased attack speed. It's insane. And it also gives you Dexterity Intelligence, which is pretty valuable. It enables you to use some other tattoos that you wouldn't otherwise. And be sure to anoint that with Watchtowers for the +1 totem. Time Clasp. You should get yourself one with as much attack speed and cast speed as possible. Try to have skill effect duration be in the positive percentile instead of the negative. And increased damage taken recouped as mana is a very nice modifier. And so is damage taken recouped as life. We otherwise wouldn't be able to get recouped as life anywhere else on the build, as we are not close on the passive tree. Not even close. And if you do get yourself a very nice one, try to double corrupt it for all to elemental resistances. You are going to need those elemental resistances, and you'll understand in just a second. Hypnotic Coil. 2-stone ring or a prismatic ring are what you will want. Maximum life and a mana modifier. You can metamod this to where you lock in the resistances, and then suffixes cannot be changed. Vald Chaos Orb just like the bow, and then you hope for a life modifier that gives you mana regeneration per second, and that's going to be actually a kind of a nice defensive layer against dots, because your mana is not going to be going away not nearly as easily with how much percentage increase you have through the build. Anyways, otherwise, make sure you have an all elemental resistances suffix, and then you will want a matching elemental resistance for what you are missing in terms of that last final couple percent. If you have fire cold resistance on this 2-stone ring, then that will be a lightning resistance modifier. If you have lightning cold 2-stone ring, then it will be a fire. If it's a light what was it? I think I already did it, but you understand. It's like a mix and match, right? If yours isn't the 2 elementals resistances on the implicit, then the third is the one that you're missing. I hope that made sense. I'm sorry if I explained that poorly. Anyways, Arn's Anguish. It is undeniably the most powerful belt for the build. It's huge. Gives us armor, gives us maximum life, gives us fire resistance, and it's easily corruptible. You can corrupt these with no qualms. They are a dime a dozen. Barely any builds use them, and yeah, you also want all elemental resistances on it. And the reason why it gives us so much damage is because it turns our endurance charges over to brutal charges, which gives us a handsome 12% chance to deal triple damage on hit. That's not double damage, that's triple damage. Let's talk about flasks. Get yourself a flask with as much life over the duration as possible, and then make sure you have bleeding immunity on it as the suffix. That's about it. Topaz flask, ruby flask, and then sapphire flask. Until you get yourself a taste of hate, you can just use a magic sapphire flask, so don't feel like you have to bend over backwards for a taste of hate. It literally gives us no DPS. The reason why we use a taste of hate instead of just a regular sapphire flask for a magic suffix is that we don't really have the ability to gain the modifier of physical taken as elemental anywhere else in the build. At least not the way I've set it up. So I found this flask to be indispensable due to our inability to access that anywhere else. The fifth flask slot. It's hard to say. I dare you to say it 3 times fast. It's hard, okay? And you don't have to go Forbidden Taste. This is something that I was doing specifically because I had a recover 100% of life on use, and I had chaos resistance capped. If you don't have chaos resistance capped, or even like 60% chaos resistance, don't do this. It's going to kill you, and it's going to kill you quickly. If you are chaos resistance capped, then this will make you, like I said in the previous video, it's like a cheat death mechanic. You'll take a hit, and if that hit is greater than 15% of your maximum life, that is qualified as a savage hit. And when you take a savage hit, and there are charges available via this implicit modifier on Forbidden Taste, it's going to automatically use it, and it's going to be as if that damage never even happened. So I used this flask to reach level 100 in tandem with my chaos resistance. You could consider it a completely free flask slot. You can use a Quicksilver if you want, especially while you're leveling. I do recommend a Quicksilver flask, if not 2. And when you're max level, I mean, it could be a Jade flask, it could be a Basalt flask, it could be whatever you want. Oh, quick note on skills again real quick for Blink Arrow. Other than Clarity, if you wanted to use something for like Trial of the Ancestors, you could use what's it called? I should have probably talked about this later, but it's not that important. Void Sphere. Yeah, Void Sphere. That's been pretty popular in Trial of the Ancestors lately, at least so I've heard people discussing it, but I'm digressing. Jewels. Let's talk about jewels. We already talked about the small cluster jewel. That will be a increased mana reservation of efficiencies. You want 3 passive skills. You want a regular jewel with corrupted blood immunity. You want a rain of splinters. Since we are on hit, you do want as much, you want as little reduced damage as possible. Watcher's Eye. Get yourself increased attack speed via precision, and then get yourself some phasing via haste, and I bet you'll feel amazing, as it certainly made me feel very, very good. Unnatural Instinct. This is one of the first jewels that I recommend you buy, or one of the first large purchases that I recommend you buy. Reason being is that it saves you 4 skill points, and then gives you a ton of attack speed. It also gives you built-in phasing in case you haven't gotten your Watcher's Eye yet. Medium Cluster Jewel. As long as it has Sleepless Sentries on it, you're good to go. Otherwise, try to get a lot of attributes on it, because more attributes you have that aren't necessary, the more tattoos you're going to be able to fit in, and they're a lot better than some random modifier on your medium or small cluster jewel. Brutal Restraint. It really does not matter what modifiers you get, just make sure you get some cold resistance on some of those nodes, and you'll be good. Besides that, I've made sure that I've checked all of the things that matter for us. I've made sure that we're on a Guardian Pinnacle boss for enemy stats. I made sure that we have maximum wither stacks. I've made sure that they're blinded, ignited, chilled, and shocked, because we are certainly critting somewhere in there, and they have all those elemental ailments applied. We don't have a huge shock. I tried to be conservative with this. It's 15%. And then the reason why wither stacks are maximum is that there's no way on a boss, we are not reaching 15 stacks due to essentially 6 attacks per second times 9 with 11 projectiles per totem. Per attack, sorry. That's a lot of hits per second, so I would be surprised if we're not at 15 wither stacks. Or at least bouncing back and forth between, 13 or 15. Talk about the notes a little bit. I've included reasoning. I've included some of the cons. I've included some leveling tips. I'll go over those now. So why Artillery Ballista? There are no gear requirements. It's got great AoE, good single target, low attribute requirements so that you can use a bunch of tattoos, high effectiveness of added damage due to additional projectiles and additional totems. Great multitude of ways to approach the build. Late game, 9 totems like I just said. You can have fallbacks such as Toxic Rain or Explosive Arrow if you really don't enjoy your time spent on what I've provided for you here. And then, in a snowball's chance in hell, maybe Grinding Gear Games comes out with a hot dog microtransaction for Artillery Ballista so that they're like, a hot dog vendor cart and they're just blasting out hot dogs 6 times a second. Here's some of the cons. We don't start using our main skill until Act 3, but we do, it's really not that bad. You do your first Ascendancy and you change, I think, 2 passive points around and you're good to go. Has some expensive items in the path of building that I discussed earlier. Crafting an in-game bow can take a lot of essences that I was talking about in the items section, but fret not, I believe I was unlucky and you could probably do it a lot sooner than I did. Physical damage mitigation could be better. Not bad, but it could be better. Visual clarity is a pain point. You will struggle to see a lot of the time, but this build will also train you. It will sharpen your eye and make you a better player maybe. You will crash party members sometimes. This is maybe a positive for some of you out there, you dirty dogs. And let's talk about some of those leveling tips. Before you make your swap, these are going to be very important for you. Use Rolling Magma, Combustion support, and Arcane Surge support as you get them. That's going to be your main damage skill for the majority of your time in these 3 acts. After that, you want to use Flame Wall and Holy Flame Totem in tandem to boost your single target damage. Use Clarity to help out your mana troubles until your second Ascendancy, which will be, I think, later on in Act 7, if I'm not wrong. And then be sure to pick up these bases. I just think that these are efficient, space-conserving bases that you can sell without a second thought and start accumulating the currency that you'll need in order to buy all the gems from Sayosa in Act 3. Library. Bandits. Kill all of them. Get +2 skill points. You're good to go. And then here's some leveling tips for when you do make that swap at Act 3 after your first Ascendancy. First Ascendancy, it's going to be Pursuit of Faith. That gives you totem duration, +1 to maximum totems, and then totem placement speed. Doesn't sound huge, but I found it to be enough to start engaging with the main skill, which is, in my opinion, what everyone wants to do, right? Like, you don't want to spend time on a skill that you're not going to be caring about or building your character towards, so the faster you get off it, the better. Look out for a Jade Amulet. You get one in Act 3 as a quest reward. I forget the quest name, but it's, from Not a Cockroach Woman. And look out for a low requirement bow. Probably a short bow or something like that. Grab Haste, Precision, Frenzy, and Sniper's Mark. After that, look for green, blue, green, red items. Doesn't have to be in that order. It could be green, green, blue, red, or green, red, blue, green. You get what I mean. But the gems you want to fit in there are Artillery Ballista, Concentrated Effect. You get that in Act 2. Faster Attacks. You also get that in Act 2, but you may not as Templar, so maybe from Act 3, Sayosa. And then Inspiration or Elemental Damage with Attacks. If you feel like you don't need Inspiration for the reduced mana cost, then I would say Elemental Damage with Attacks for consistency. Use a combination of these auras: Haste, Grace, Precision, and Determination. You're probably not going to be able to fit them all at once. If you want to be sneaky, you could maybe use Arrogance and Precision as a 2-link setup, and that'll save you early reservation efficiency and then get you an early Determination. But I would recommend Haste, Grace, Precision as your core, and then move on from there. Excuse me. Like I said, fit these when you can, readjust them when you get more gear or levels, and then feel free to mess around. You don't have to do exactly what I did like I've been saying the whole time. Keep looking for bows and quivers with these mods. Flat elemental damage and as much attack speed as possible. That is all that matters. Nothing else. It's just, everything else is like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not what you care about. Ascendancy, pursuit of faith, ritual of awakening, conviction of power, and divine guidance. If you want to see what that looks like, it looks like this. So let me take them away. So it's pursuit of faith, ritual of awakening, conviction of power, and divine guidance. We'll do that again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. That's your ascendancy. Pantheon. You should go Brine King for stun avoidance and freeze immunity. And then you should also go Minor God as Ralakesh for scary bleeds. Bleeds are very scary, so respect them. Annoyance. I forgot to change this section, but you should absolutely just be going Watchtowers. So let me just go ahead and do you a favor here. Boom! It's solved. Watchtowers. That's the only annoyant you care about. Nothing else. On your way there, you could use Instinct, which is Sepia Azure for some additional spell suppression, if you so choose. But until then, or after then, I don't even know what I'm saying to me. Watchtowers. Use that annoyant. Artillery Ballista and other mechanics. Try to make Artillery Ballista level 22 or higher. The reason for this is that at level 22 you get +1 Ballista. The maximum amount from the skill itself is +4. It's very nice. Try to get +4 additional projectiles. I was reading, or not reading, but listening to Grimro and his Lightning Arrow Artillery Ballista Deadeye. And he seemed to think, or have done the math, and figured out that +4 additional projectiles is the sweet spot for overlapping hits on Artillery Ballista. So that's what I choose to believe as well, as I'm not going to go out of my way and do that math myself. I trust him. Anyways, delay. There are some unfortunate mechanics to using a ballista that also fires projectiles into the air. That would be, you summon the totem, totem starts attacking its target, and then that projectile needs to land and hit that target. So there's delay in the build, but it really isn't that bad, as you've seen in the showcases. Origin of the projectile, depending on if you're using point blank or far shot, you need to understand that that origin of the projectile is being transferred over to the ballista and not you. So wherever the ballista is going to be that determining factor. Target size. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Ralakesh is a smaller boss, and then Arakali is a gigantic boss. Bigger bosses are easier to hit, so Arakali or something of similar size will be taking a lot more damage. A good example, I think, in the showcase was, Maven in her human form was taking less damage than, say, her Nebula form in the center of the arena when she's like spiraling the beams around. Defensive layers, don't really need to dive too deep into those. You've probably got a good understanding. Base types. You should be using a thicket bow, like I said over in the item section. Other than that, while you're leveling, go ahead and look for really any bow base, as you only care about elemental damage and as fast as it can be. But you don't want only speed. You don't only want elemental damage. It has to be a happy matrimony. Quivers. For endgame, if you want to craft, use a feathered quiver. If you don't want to craft, use rear guard, as I do think rear guard is going to be the tankier option. Belts. Arn's Anguish. Other than that, level with a leather belt or a rustic sash. Helmets. Wilma's Requital. And other than that, there's a ton of different interesting options if you wanted to change the playstyle. For endgame, for the gloves, Abhorrent Interrogation. Just really, they can't be argued. It's too much damage. If we actually go over to like, where is it? Gloves? Yeah. They're almost 30% of our damage. It's insane. It's really, really insane how strong those gloves are. Everything else, look for armor and evasion bases, and for those specific jewelry items I had talked about back in the item section. Cluster Jewel, we already talked about these. Timeless Jewel, we already talked about these. It's getting a little redundant in terms of sections. Alternate quality gems. Divergent Artillery Ballista is something that you could pay attention to, but just know you would still have to get it to be a level 21, and that could be quite expensive. Divergent Inspiration if you're having mana troubles. Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks so that you can run reflection maps, and then Awakened Added Cold Damage if you wanted to really bump up your damage late game. I think there was also, what was it, Divergent Arcane Surge, and then there's Divergent Blink Arrow, or maybe that's Phantasmal Blink Arrow. Yeah, it's Phantasmal Blink Arrow. Labyrinth enchants, we already went over those as we were going through the items, but I'll talk about them here as well. Artillery Ballista fires 2 additional arrows for your helmet. And then for your improved Uber Labyrinth, you will get a belt enchant, which should be 30% increased accuracy rating while you have Onslaught. That should certainly cap you out to 100% chance to hit evasive monsters if you're using War Banner. And then here's a list of some of the mana tools if you find yourself in a time of need. And then a problem monster modifier that you should look out for is Proximity Shield with Trickster or high movement speed. Can be annoying. It's not really that scary, it's just annoying. And if you really want to just get it done quickly, you can run in and then summon all your ballistas around him in a circle, and it'll imprison him for a small second and get a ton of damage out. That's the end of the guide. I hope I didn't forget to talk about too much. If you would like to ask me any questions, please stop by my Twitch channel or my Discord. I would be happy to answer anything you have on your mind regarding this build at any time. And don't forget that I'm also on POE Ninja. This is my character's name. It's Vash_hotdog_SLNGN_carts. I am level 100. This is probably where I'm going to be leaving the character, as I would like to start focusing on something else. As there were like a couple of other builds I had planned for this season, but this one kind of got away from me. I definitely died way more than I was planning. I made a ton of mistakes. A ton of mistakes. Let's see. Deaths. 202 times. Do not feel bad if you were making mistakes, guys. Seriously, like, I get so mad sometimes, and after every time I get mad, I'm always more mad at myself for taking it so seriously. Just have fun. Let yourself relax, and you know, ask yourself what you really are doing wrong. For me, it was I was charging headlong into packs and not really paying attention to my map modifiers. Specific map modifiers that were giving me trouble are reduced effect of Rs and what's it? Increased critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier of monsters within the map, and cannot regenerate modifiers. Not saying that I would run no regeneration modifiers all the time, but you know, if you go into a map where you're like, oh, it's only got 60% reduced regeneration of life and energy shield and mana, it's way deadlier than you think. It's way deadlier. Regeneration is a huge defensive layer for this build, and you should respect it. I'm not saying you can't run these. You can run any map modifier you want on this build, bar, you know, cannot regenerate life or mana. As you saw, that was kind of annoying for me in the pit of the Chimera. You can do it. It's just annoying, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to annoy yourself. That about does it. I thank you for watching if you've stayed tuned the entire time. I know I ramble every now and then, but this was a lot of fun. As many times as I've died, as angry as I've gotten, and as long as it's taken me, I'm pretty sure a better player could take this even further. They could get level 100 even faster. I was like level 92 on day 1 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. So a plethora of mistakes, and those range from buying the wrong items to incorrect strategies to greediness. So don't be too hard on yourself. Other than that, I'll repeat what I've already said. Thanks for watching. I hope you found what I've been talking about interesting, and don't forget, I stream every day over at twitch.tv/Vashtalos. I have a Discord channel that I'm going to leave in the description down below. And yeah, hope you had fun. I will see you next time, Exiles. Wakaraiua Tuahu.